Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast on tonight's headlines.
The son and namesake of the Philippines' former president, Ferdinand Marcos, said he took a cocaine test after President Duterte accused an unnamed presidential candidate of using the illegal drug.
The driver of the car that plowed into a Christmas parade in the Midwestern U.S. city of Waukesha, killing 5 and injuring 48, was apparently fleeing a domestic dispute at the time and will face charges of intentional homicide.
Around 3,000 people were ordered to remain indoors on the Spanish island of La Palma on Monday as lava from an erupting volcano reached the sea, risking the release of toxic gas.
China says that the U.S. sailing a warship through the Taiwan Strait on Tuesday is a deliberate attempt to disrupt and undermine regional peace and stability and urges it to correct its mistakes.
And now to the news. The son and namesake of the Philippines' former president, Ferdinand Marcos, said he took a cocaine test after President Duterte accused an unnamed presidential candidate of using the illegal drug. Marcos Jr., or Bongbong Marcos, who is among the frontrunners seeking to succeed the president in 2022, said in a statement he was tested Monday and had submitted the result to 3 police agencies. He also told the local broadcaster he had tested negative. "I really don't feel that I am the one being alluded to," according to Marcos Jr., popularly known as Bongbong. In spite of that, he said, "I believe it is my inherent duty as an aspiring public official to assure my fellow Filipinos that I am against illegal drugs. And this is why I took a cocaine test yesterday." President Duterte has not identified the candidate he claims uses cocaine. A leaked survey conducted in October by respected polling outfit Social Weather Stations reportedly showed Marcos Jr. as the top preference for president with 47% of voter support. He was followed by incumbent vice president and leading opposition candidate Leni Robredo by 18% and celebrity Mayor Francisco Dumagoso at 13%. Retired boxing champion and Senator Manny Pacquiao was 4th with 9%, followed by Senator Panfilo Lacson with 5%.
Philippine boxing legend Manny Pacquiao, who announced his retirement in September after a glittering decades-long career, admitted he misses boxing, but said he's done with the sport and will not return to fight even if he loses in the 2022 presidential elections. Take a look.
My plan to run is, I'm not thinking about backing out like that of my plan. This is for the Filipino people. What I'm doing now is for the benefits and for a true change, real change. I never, in my dreams that I wanted to be president, but it just seeing the desperation of our people made me realize everything that I need to, because nobody will fight for them. Sincerely, wholeheartedly, and that's Manny Pacquiao. Continue the drug war in the right way. We can push the drug war without with the due process. I mean, there's a law. You have to respect the due process. Give them chance to defend themselves and to prove that they're innocent. I miss boxing, but I don't think boxing is still like me. Well, I'm already turning 43 years old, so it's enough for me. I mean, I'm done. hanging my gloves is the hardest part of my life.
Fans in the nation see the former boxer as living proof that success is possible for anyone who works hard, no matter their origins. Pacquiao has served as a celebrity endorser for products ranging from appliances to pizza and cars, hosted TV shows, and even founded his own cryptocurrency, the PAC token. If his presidential bid fails, he plans to add farmer to his CV, growing fruit on a 20-hectare property in the southern province of Sarangani.
To the U.S. now, where the driver of the car that plowed into a Christmas parade in the Midwestern U.S. city of Waukesha, killing 5 and injuring 48, was apparently fleeing a domestic dispute at the time and will face charges of intentional homicide. Take a look.
The suspect involved in this tragic incident is identified as Daryl E. Brooks, male, 39 years of age, who is a resident of the city of Milwaukee. At this time, the Waukesha Police Department is referring 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide with additional charges based on the investigation, but those will come in time. I want to dispel some rumors. There's no pursuit that led up to this incident. This is not a terrorist event. We can tell you that there was some type of disturbance that we suspect was between the suspect and another individuals at a different location just prior to the incident.
Waukesha, Wisconsin Police Chief Dan Thompson said that suspect Daryl Brooks, 39, appeared to be fleeing a domestic disturbance and was not being pursued by police when he drove his red SUV through the city's annual holiday parade on Sunday. 4 women and 1 man between the ages of 52 and 81 were killed. 48 people were hospitalized. And of those sent to hospitals, 18 were children. 18 were children, according to Dr. Amy Drendel, the head of emergency medicine at Children's Wisconsin Hospital.
In other news, around 3,000 people were ordered to remain indoors on the Spanish island of La Palma on Monday as lava from an erupting volcano reached the sea, risking the release of toxic gas. Take a look. Now, the Canary Islands Volcanic Emergency Plan, or PIVOLCA, ordered the confinement of residents of coastal towns and villages near where the lava cascaded into the sea, sending large plumes of smoke into the air. Local emergency services said that on Twitter. Now, the order was given due to the possible release of gases that are harmful to health. The order affects around 3,000 people on the island. Miguel Angel Morcuende, technical director of PIVOLCA, told reporters in a news conference, this is the 3rd time now that a lava flow has reached the Atlantic Ocean since the Cumbre Vieja volcano in the south of the island erupted on September 19th, covering large areas with ash. All flights to and from La Palma's airport were canceled on Monday because of the ash, and the 3rd straight day that air travel has been disrupted. And for the first time since the eruption started, local authorities advised residents of La Palma's capital, Santa Cruz de La Palma, in the east to use high filtration FFP2 face masks to protect themselves from emissions of dioxide and sulfur. Most of the island, which is home to around 85,000 people, is so far unaffected by the eruption. But parts of the western side, where the lava flows have slowly made their way to the sea, face an uncertain future. Now, the molten rock has covered 1,065 hectares and destroyed nearly 1,500 buildings, according to Copernicus, according to the European Union Satellite Monitoring Service.
To Iceland now, where the Fagradalsfjall volcano has not spewed lava since September 18, the day it became the country's longest eruption in 50 years. But scientists say it's too early to call the eruption over. Now, lava began flowing out of a fissure in the ground on the evening of March 19 on the Reykjanes Peninsula to the southwest of Reykjavik, a spectacle that quickly became a major tourist attraction. Now, hardened black lava fields cover the landscape for almost 5 square kilometers or 1.93 square miles, the occasional sulfurous plume of smoke rising up from cracks. It is possible that a point clogged enough to start to cool down so that the new lava simply hasn't managed to come out, according to Sara Barsori, the volcanic hazards coordinator at the Icelandic Meteorological Office. That is often how eruptions end, she said. For 2 months, seismographs have registered no tremors, the slight vibrations recorded before and during an eruption. While there have been no lava spurts during that period, a plume of smoke is still rising from the main crater. While it's possible to predict a volcanic eruption, Iceland's scientific community would not be surprised to see a continuation of volcanic activity at the Fagradalsfjall or for a new fissure to open elsewhere on the peninsula.
A volcano that destroyed an entire town in Colombia with the death of some 25,000 people spewed ash and gas this weekend on the 36th anniversary of that devastating eruption. The Nevado del Ruiz volcano showed noticeable activity starting Saturday, the Colombian Geological Service said. Now, the Nevado del Ruiz in western Colombia is one of the many volcanoes on the Ring of Fire, a path around the Pacific Basin characterized by active volcanoes and frequent earthquakes. In late 1985, after decades lying dormant, this one began to rumble. And on November 13, it erupted, emitting so much heat that it melted the snow that caps the mountain permanently. This triggered a cascading wall of mud that swallowed the town of Armero, killing half of its population of 50,000. Etched in the memories of Colombians and people around the world is footage of 13-year-old Omaira Sanchez, who was trapped in the debris of her destroyed house with water and mud up to her neck. She spent 3 days that way until she finally died. The eruption was considered the worst natural disaster in Colombian history and one of the deadliest volcanic eruptions of the 20th century. Now, Nevado del Ruiz has been in a period of instability for more than 11 years, according to the Geological Service.
In other news, Indian tech hub Bangalore has been inundated by floodwater after torrential downpours that have killed scores of people across the country's south in the past few weeks. Lakes dotted around the city have overflowed after 3 days of ferocious rain, submerging roads and flooding homes. Rescuers deployed inflatable life rafts to retrieve stranded residents, while buses and motorized rickshaws carted commuters through knee-deep water. Experts say unpredictable and extreme weather across South Asia is being driven by climate change, exacerbated by damming deforestation and excessive development. At least 30 people have been killed after flash floods around southern India in recent days, according to local media reports. Another 42 died last month when heavy rains pummeled the coastal state of Kerala. A week of pounding rains also hit the city of Chennai earlier in November, flooding most main roads and uprooting trees. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Welcome back to the news. At least 45 people, including a dozen minors, were killed after a bus caught fire south of the Bulgarian capital early Tuesday, according to officials. A cause has yet to be determined, but officials believe a fire broke out on board and the bus crashed into guardrails. There were no other vehicles involved in the accident, which occurred around 2 a.m. on a highway about 40 kilometers from Sofia, near the village of Bosneg. Of the victims, 12 in total were under the age of 18. National Police Chief Stadimir Stanev said he told BTV television that 45 of the 52 people on the bus were killed. The driver died immediately, so there was no one able to open the doors, he added. North Macedonian Health Minister Venko Filipce told public BNT television that the 7 survivors, including a 16-year-old girl, all 7, 2 women and 5 men, are from the same family, he said, after visiting the survivors in the Sofia hospital where they were being treated for serious burns. Survivors jumped out of the windows, said Maya Arguyova, head of the treatment center for severe burns, where they were transported.
To the U.S. now, where the State Department urged Americans not to travel to Germany and Denmark due to surging COVID-19 cases in Europe. The department issued level 4 travel advisories, the highest level for both countries, indicating a very high level of COVID-19 in the country. Potential travelers were also warned that there are restrictions in place affecting U.S. citizen entry into Denmark. Europe's return to the pandemic's epicenter has been blamed on a sluggish vaccine uptake in some nations, the highly contagious Delta variant, and colder weather moving people indoors again.
To the Philippines now, expecting an influx of international arrivals in the country in the coming weeks. The Department of Health seeks to ensure implementation of strict border controls and close monitoring of COVID trends, including variants of interests and variants of concerns. Take a look.
Increasing case trends seen across Europe and North America. These countries have loosened restrictions and minimum public health standard requirements as early as June of this year in lieu of their high vaccination coverage. Historically, case increases in Asia and the Philippines occur a few months after peaks in Western countries. Close monitoring of other country experiences and variants of interest and variants of concerns, and ensuring border control as influx of international arrivals expected in the coming weeks. Minimum public health standards adherence must be strengthened as we increase mobility to ensure the risk of transmission remains low here in our country. Of this, 1.98% were positive for the Alpha variant, 3.56% were positive for the Beta variant, and 84.19% were positive for the Delta variant. Also, of the total sequence samples, incoming international travelers comprised of 1,179 or 5.73%. We are doing retrospective sampling to trace the beginnings of the Delta variant, introduction to the country, as well as the earliest cases.
Verheiras said that local government units and business establishments must also ensure proper implementation of minimum public health standards and safety seal standards, especially in areas where 3Cs or closed spaces, crowded places, and close contact settings will most likely be present. The DOH on Monday said 93.49% of those who died from COVID-19 were not fully vaccinated. With this, Verheiras stressed that vaccination will be the key to reduce the number of deaths.
In Germany, the EU's most populous nation, just 68% of the population is fully jabbed. The country has urged all vaccinated adults to get a booster jab to combat waning vaccine efficacy after 6 months. Take a look.
Wahrscheinlich wird am Ende dieses Winters so ziemlich jeder in Deutschland, das wurde ja manchmal schon etwas zynisch genannt, geimpft, genesen oder gestorben sein.
Now, Germany last week announced tougher coronavirus curbs to contain the ferocious fourth COVID wave. In regions with high hospitalization rates, the unvaccinated will be barred from public spaces like cinemas, gyms, and indoor dining. Employees are asked to return to working from home whenever possible, while anyone going into the workplace has to prove they are vaccinated, recovered, or have recently tested negative, a system known as 3G. The same rule applies on public transport in those areas. Several of Germany's hardest hit regions, including Bavaria and Saxony, have gone even further by canceling large events such as Christmas markets and effectively barring the unvaccinated from non-essential public life. All vaccinated adults have also been urged to get a booster shot to combat waning vaccine efficacy after 6 months.
Austria returns to a partial lockdown in the most dramatic COVID-19 restrictions seen in Western Europe for months after a weekend of violence against virus measures rocked several cities on the continent. The Alpine nation is also imposing a sweeping vaccine mandate from February 1st, one of few places in the world to announce such a step so far. Take a look.
Klar, auf einer rationalen Ebene wäre es schon logisch, diesen Lockdown durchzuführen, damit die Zahlen wieder sinken und so weiter. Aber aus meiner persönlichen Ebene ist es natürlich kompletter Schwachsinn. Seit 2 Jahren versuche ich da irgendwie, ich weiß nicht, mein soziales Leben am Laufen zu halten. Vor allem in der Jugend ist das ein sehr großes Thema. Und es geht halt einfach nicht, vor allem fortgehen oder auch mit meinem Freund auf ein Date irgendwo hingehen. Ich warte jetzt schon seit 9 Monaten darauf, dass ich irgendwas mit ihm machen kann.
Meanwhile, Dutch police said they had arrested at least 21 people during a 4th night of unrest over coronavirus measures, although the situation had calmed down. Prime Minister Mark Rutte has slammed the days-long spree of pure violence by idiots and warned that more COVID restrictions are on the cards. Small groups caused trouble in Zwolle, Groningen, and Roosendaal on Monday night, though not on the scale of violence that rocked major cities at the weekend. Police in the northern city of Zwolle arrested 13 people after declaring an emergency situation to prevent what they said were planned riots, according to local police on Twitter. Prime Minister Rattay said on Monday he understood the tension in society as the pandemic drags on, but he said he will never accept that, quote, idiots use pure violence, unquote. His government has warned that further measures are likely if there is no sign of a fall in cases from the current restrictions, under which bars, cafes, restaurants, and supermarkets close early and people are instructed to work from home.
French Prime Minister Jean Castex condemns days of rioting against COVID-19 restrictions which have taken place in Guadeloupe. Paris authorities have sent elite police and counter-terrorism officers to the French overseas territory to quell the unrest.
C'est une petite minorité violente qui dévalise les magasins, qui barre les routes, qui rançonne les automobilistes, qui empêche des personnes malades d'accéder à des soins parfois vitaux et qui va même jusqu'à tirer sur les forces de l'ordre. Je condamne avec la plus extrême fermeté ces violences. Les auteurs sont et continueront d'être arrêtés et jugés. Je veux dire aussi toute ma solidarité à nos concitoyens de Guadeloupe qui en sont les premières victimes.
Meanwhile, fifth wave coronavirus infections in France are rising at an alarming rate, according to the government on Sunday, with new daily COVID cases close to doubling over the past week. The 7-day average of new cases reached 17,153 on Saturday, up from 9,458 a week earlier, according to health authorities, an increase of 81%. The fifth wave is starting at lightning speed, according to government spokesman Gabriel Attal, telling this to media. The latest 7-day increase is 3 times the average rise of cases recorded over the previous 3 weeks, indicating an exponential acceleration of infections. For now, the spike in infections has not led to a massive influx of COVID patients into hospitals, with the authorities attributing the limited number of intensive care patients to France's high rate of vaccinations, which appear highly effective against most dangerous forms of COVID.
Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo and 4 of his ministers went into quarantine on Monday after French Prime Minister Jean Castex tested positive for COVID-19, according to a government statement. Now, French Prime Minister Jean Castex tested positive for COVID-19 on Monday evening, according to his office, adding that he would isolate for 10 days while continuing to work. Castex immediately carried out a PCR test after finding out that one of his daughters had tested positive. Castex had been in Brussels on Monday morning, where he met his Belgian counterpart, Alexander De Croo. He was accompanied on this trip by several other senior colleagues, including France's Interior Minister Gerard Darmanin and Europe Minister Clement Beaune. The 56-year-old head of government received 2 doses of vaccine in the spring and had never tested positive before. President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte both contracted the disease last year.
To other news now, a young Hong Kong democracy activist was sentenced to 3.5 years behind bars on Tuesday after pleading guilty to secession under the city's sweeping national security law. Tony Chung, 20, is the youngest person to be convicted under the new law, which has crushed dissent in Hong Kong and transformed the once outspoken international business hub. Earlier this month, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of secession and 1 count of money laundering, but defiantly declared he had nothing to be ashamed of. Chung was previously the convener of Student Localism, a small group he set up 5 years ago as a secondary school pupil to advocate Hong Kong's independence from China. Separation from China was then a fringe minority view in Hong Kong, although calls for self-rule became more vocal during huge and often violent democracy protests 2 years ago. Beijing imposed a security law on Hong Kong in response to those protests, and Student Localism disbanded hours before it came into effect. Authorities accused Chung of continuing to operate the group with the help of overseas activists and soliciting donations via PayPal, the foundation of the money laundering charge. Chung has already spent more than a year in custody after he was arrested in October of 2020. He was nabbed by plainclothes police from a coffee shop opposite the U.S. consulate where he was allegedly planning to seek asylum. The security law targets anything authorities deem subversion, terrorism, or collusion with foreign forces.
China on Tuesday said the controversy surrounding Peng Shuai was being maliciously hyped up after the Chinese tennis star made sexual assault claims against one of the nation's most powerful politicians. Take a look.
关于彭帅的近况，我已经多次回答这个问题，这不是外交问题。相信大家也已经看到，他近日出席了一些公开活动，并同国际奥委会主席巴赫进行了视频通话。希望某些人停止恶意炒作，更不要政治化。
Peng, a Wimbledon and French Open doubles champion, was not seen for more than 2 weeks after she made the accusations against former Vice Premier Zhang Gaoli. The 35-year-old Peng reappeared in public for the first time at the weekend when she was seen attending a Beijing tennis tournament. Peng appeared in a 13-minute video call with the International Olympic Committee chief on Sunday. But human rights groups and sporting authorities overseas have continued to voice concern about Peng's welfare and whether authorities will act on her allegations. The Women's Tennis Association said this video does not change our call for a full, fair, and transparent investigation without censorship into her allegation of sexual assault, which is the issue that gave rise to our initial concern.
A U.S. warship sailed through the strait separating Taiwan and China today, according to the Navy, the first such passage since leaders from the two rival superpowers held a video summit. The passage through the Taiwan Strait by the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer USS Milius was a routine transit, according the U.S. 7th Fleet said. The voyage, the 11th declared freedom of navigation exercise of the year, demonstrates the U.S. commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, according to its statement. The latest transit came after U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese Xi Jinping traded strong warnings on the future of Taiwan at a virtual summit earlier this month. U.S. warships periodically conduct exercises in the strait, often triggering angry responses from Beijing, which claims Taiwan and the surrounding waters as its own territory. The United States and many other countries view the route as international waters open to all.
China says that the U.S. sailing a warship through the Taiwan Strait on Tuesday is a deliberate attempt to disrupt and undermine regional peace and stability, and urges it to correct its mistakes. Watch this.
美国军舰近来多次打着航行自由的幌子，在台湾海峡炫耀实力，滋事挑衅。这不是对什么自由开放的承诺，而是对地区和平稳定的蓄意干扰和破坏。国际社会看得清清楚楚。中方捍卫国家主权和领土完整的决心坚定不移。美方应立即纠正错误，停止寻衅滋事、越线玩火，多为地区和平与稳定发挥建设性作用。 我刚才已经回答了有关的问题。我想某些人应该停止蓄意、恶意的炒作，更不应该将这个事情政治化。
The latest transit came after U.S. President Joe Biden and China's Xi Jinping traded strong warnings on the future of Taiwan at a virtual summit earlier this month. Chinese state media reported after the summit that Xi cautioned Biden that encouraging Taiwanese independence would be playing with fire. A growing number of U.S. allies have transited the route as Beijing intensifies its military threats towards Taiwan and solidifies its control over the disputed South China Sea. British, Canadian, French, and Australian warships have all made passages through the Taiwan Strait in recent years, sparking protests from Beijing. Eagle News will be back with more stories. Please don't go away.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Ma'am, yung pumasok ng pandemya talaga sobrang dagok. Talaga grabe yung ginawa sa amin. Tapos sasabihan pa ng sakit ng asawa ko. Ultimo gamot, ma'am. Magkano lang ang gamot? 2, 3. Hindi ko pa mabili. Oh, siguro, pagsubok lang naman to. Hindi naman siguro ibibigay sa akin to kung hindi ko kaya.
Hindi nagsasalita. Naninikip yung dibdib niya. Tapos, pumunta ka na ngayon dito, kuya.
Ano naman? Puro kabiro.
And presence of uniformed personnel to enforce quarantine procedures.
Para kang superhero, Papa.
Isipin, may makakain ka lang. Diba? Pero sabi nila na lalabas ka. Hindi ka ba nihawa sa anak mo paglabas mo? Hindi mo alam po nakakuha na ng sakit. Diba ganun? Ako inisip po. Kasi naman, hindi ako lumabas. Gutom naman kami.
Para sa isang tatay, napakasarap maramdaman na buong-buo ang tiwala ng iyong pamilya. Nasama-sama niyong malalagpasan at mapagtatagumpayan ang anumang hamon ng buhay. Kahit na mabigat na pagsubok ang pinagdadaanan natin, bagong pag-asa at bagong inspirasyon ang ihahatid namin sa inyo.
pinapangarap niya na mapagamot siya, ma'am. Ito na yung katuparan na para mapagamot yung... Ito na yung katuparan na para mapagamot yung misis ko. Sir Eduardo B. Manalo, maraming salamat po sa naitulong nyo na ibinigay po sa aking pamilya.
Kaya kung kayo ay may kakilala, kaibigan o kamag-anak na nais niyong lingapin ang aming programa, ipadala niyo sa amin ang kanyang kwento. Ako po si Apple David at ito ang Lingap Stories.
Hi, I'm Alex Calleja, isang podcaster, YouTuber, writer, director, at isang stand-up comedian for more than 12 years. Kaya naman, heto na ang Funniest Snackable Videos! Ang natatanging show na bubusugin ang buong sambayanan sa katatawanan! Ito ang bagong tambayan ng buong pamilya at barkada. Mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes nyo kami makakasama tuwing 4:30 p.m. Dito lang sa Net25. Dito, mapapanood natin ang best comedy videos na hinanap pa namin sa kasuluk-sulukan ng internet. So ano pang hinihintay nyo? Join na sa pinakabago at pinakamasayang afternoon habit ng tawanan at kulitan, ang Funniest Snackable Videos!
Welcome back. The Federal Reserve will work to prevent high levels of U.S. inflation from becoming entrenched. That is according to the central bank's chair, Jerome Powell, on Monday. Take a look.
We know that high inflation takes a toll on families, especially those less able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We will use our tools both to support the economy and a strong labor market and to prevent higher inflation from becoming entrenched.
Now, Mr. Powell spoke after President Joe Biden announced he was nominating him to serve a second term as leader of the world's most influential monetary policy institution, amid an inflation spike that has seen U.S. consumer prices rise last month by the largest amount in more than 3 decades.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson says all new homes and workplaces built in England from 2022 will need to have electric vehicle charging points as standard. We have Patricia Rodriguez for the report.
Britain will make electric car chargers compulsory for new buildings in England from 2022 as it switches away from high-polluting vehicles, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Monday. Johnson, fresh from hosting the COP26 Climate Change Summit, told business leaders that he will legislate to compel charging points in new homes, supermarkets, and workplaces in England as part of his carbon-slashing plans. The new legislation will create 145,000 new charging points per year and apply also to major renovation projects. The move is a step towards banning new sales of diesel and petrol cars in the UK from 2030 as part of efforts to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Johnson wants Britain to lead global efforts to transition to net zero in order to help the economy recover from pandemic fallout. Let's listen in to Boris Johnson's statement made at the CBI press conference.
Has come, hasn't it? UK sales of EVs are now increasing at 70% a year. And in 2030, we're ending the market for new hydrocarbon ICEs, internal combustion engine vehicles, ahead of other European countries. And we're regulating so as to require new homes and buildings to have EV charging points, with another 145,000 charging points to be installed thanks to these regulations. We're investing in new projects, and as the world reaches this pivotal moment post-Glasgow, it's vital that we recognise not just the scale of the challenge, but the opportunity now for British business and industry. Because in the end, it is you, it is business people who will fix this problem. Governments don't innovate. So we're investing not just in big nuclear power plants, but in small nuclear reactors as well. And we're consulting on classifying this essential technology as green investment so that we can get more investment flowing in and ahead of the EU. Lenin
There are currently about 25,000 charging points in Britain. However, the Competition and Markets Authority regulator estimates that more than 10 times this amount will be needed by 2030. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Patricia Rodriguez. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, Patricia. Meanwhile, Albert Einstein's handwritten notes for the theory of relativity are being auctioned in Paris, expected to fetch millions of euros. Now, this is without a doubt the most valuable Einstein manuscript ever to come to auction, according to Christie's, which is hosting the sale on behalf of the Agates Auction House. The manuscript contains preparatory work for the physicist's signature achievement, the theory of general relativity, which he published in 1915. Christie's expects it to reach between 2 and 3 million euros, or 2.3 million to 3.4 million US dollars. The 54-page document was handwritten in 1913 and 1914 in Zurich, Switzerland by Einstein and his colleague and confident Swiss engineer Michel Besso. It discusses his theory of general relativity building on his theory of special relativity from 1905 that was encapsulated in the famous equation E equals mc squared. Einstein died in 1955, age 76, lauded as one of the greatest theoretical physicists of all time. His theories of relativity revolutionized his field by introducing new ways of looking at the movement of objects in space and time. Christie said in 1913, Besso and Einstein attacked one of the problems that had been troubling the scientific community for decades, the anomaly of the planet Mercury's orbit. Now, this initial manuscript contains a certain number of unnoticed errors, it added. Once Einstein spotted them, he let the paper drop, and it was taken away by Besso.
LeBron James has been suspended for one game following his bloody clash with Detroit Pistons player Isaiah Stewart, according to the NBA. Los Angeles Lakers star James was ejected for only the second time in his career after wildly lashing out at Stewart during Sunday's victory over the Pistons. Stewart was left with blood pouring from a facial injury following the flashpoint and needed to be restrained repeatedly by teammates and staff as he attempted to confront James. The 20-year-old Stewart was given a 2-game suspension for his part in the altercation. The NBA said Stewart had been given a 2-game ban for escalating an on-court altercation by repeatedly and aggressively pursuing James in an unsportsmanlike manner. James's suspension, which means that he will miss the Lakers game against the New York Knicks on Tuesday, was for recklessly hitting Stewart in the face and initiating an on-court altercation. The incident occurred with 9:18 remaining in the third quarter and the Lakers trailing 79-67. James swung an arm into Stewart's face as the pair battled for rebounding position. Stewart was initially whistled for a loose ball foul. Following a video review, James was then slapped with a flagrant foul too and sent to the locker room. Stewart was handed 2 technical fouls and thrown out. Lakers star Anthony Davis later said James had struck Stewart unintentionally.
Disgraced star Kevin Spacey will have to pay almost $31 million to the production company that made the series House of Cards, in which he starred until he was fired over allegations of sexual harassment, according to legal documents made public on Monday. MRC, the production company that made the popular tale of political intrigue that was broadcast on Netflix, had sought damages for lost revenue attributed to Spacey's abrupt exit after allegations of harassment and sexual abuse emerged. An arbitration judge made the ruling on October 19 when MRC filed a petition to confirm the verdict in a Los Angeles court. 2-time Oscar winner Spacey had starred as unscrupulous U.S. politician Frank Underwood in 5 seasons of House of Cards until the allegations of sexual harassment against co-workers were made public in the media. The production company said the actor's abrupt exit from the popular series required a reorganization that resulted in substantial losses for MRC. It had to rewrite the script, excluding Underwood, the main character of the series, and redesign the 6th season that went from 13 to 8 episodes.
Most of us will have experienced drifting off to sleep during a lengthy bus journey, but would you pay to do just that? Well, that's the idea behind a Novel tour bus business in Hong Kong, billing itself as a possible cure for insomnia. Take a look.
Well, I try to. At least I picked a T-shirt that looks like a pajama, and so I think I preparing myself into a deep sleep.
每個香港人都有啊，返工壓力啊，買樓壓力啊，生活壓力啊，跟住又去唔到旅遊啊，各方面嘅壓力加上嚟，我諗每個香港人都唔會好瞓。
You know, when the bus moves, it sort of vibrates and you swing a little bit, and I think that might help. But the weather today is too good to be sleeping, so I couldn't really sleep.
I could easily sleep on a ride.
Wait, you can sleep during rides?
I can easily sleep
wow.
on a ride.
Well, I thought being a flight attendant, but we both were flight attendants
I can easily sleep on a ride, yeah. I can. And I like it when it's turbulent.
Let's see if I get to sleep then. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. The news continues tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. Have a good sleep, everyone. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and
we live in interesting times.
This program is supported by SMC Global Power.